Hello to all of you. Thank you for joining us. We will start shortly. So I think we have a good number now. People are starting to continue. They've continued to go into the waiting room, but I think we're reaching now 200 participants. So I think we can get started to make the best use of time. So welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you connecting from different parts of the world. I want to welcome you to the MAPS Secretariat launch event. My name is Nicolas Penagos, and I'm the head of the MAPS Secretariat. And I'm very pleased to see such a diverse and big audience today for this very first event launching the Secretariat. This webinar is being recorded, and we will upload the recording later to our website. We will hear today lessons from Peru and Norway and how MAPS is the first step to improving procurement systems. We want to keep this very practical, so feel free to submit your questions via the Zoom Q&A feature, or also on social media by tagging on Twitter at MAPS Secretariat. So with that, I'd like to start us off first with some opening remarks. I'd like to invite three persons that are very good allies and partners of the MAPS Secretariat and of the initiative. So first we will hear from Elsa Pilichowski, Director for Public Governance at the OECD, where the MAPS Secretariat is housed. Then we will have, as co-chairs of the MAPS Secretariat Steering Committee, Laurent Rucker, Head of the Mission for Democratic Governance at the French Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs, and Hélène Ngani Ganga, Director of the Political and Civic Transition Department at the AFD, Agence Française de Développement. Then Elsa, the floor is yours, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, merci à tous d'être là cet après-midi. C'est un moment important pour MAPS et pour le CDE et pour le monde de procurement. I would like to welcome Laurent Rucker, Hélène Ngani-Ganga, the members of the MAPS Steering Committee, and all of you, of course, to this first webinar organized by the MAPS Secretariat. I would like to congratulate the team, and in particular Nicolas, who has put this Secretariat in operation and also organized this event today. Of course, I mean, COVID has placed procurement, as you know, at the forefront of government priorities. It is clear for practitioners and now also very much so for citizens why getting procurement right matters. In particular, to ensure, you know, the supply of essential goods during the crisis, such as PPE, ventilators, oxygen, and vaccines. Government actions to tackle the pandemic necessarily go through a country's public procurement system. I think we have all learned about that the hard way. And we're not only speaking about purchasing essential goods and services. Before the crisis, as probably you all know, public procurement already represented 12% of annual GDP in OECD countries. Procurement must then continuously improve to enable the effective delivery of all goods and services in a way that is both sustainable and also has to inspire trust among citizens. This will continue to be extremely important in the recovery phase, as we see, and you all know that as well, the unprecedented fiscal packages in the making in a number of countries, including on infrastructure. We've just seen the US package on infrastructure, which is really enormous and unmet in history or recent history. Getting procurement right to make the best of this historical stimulus to build back better is thus really imperative. So where can we get started? How should we go about reforming procurement systems? Understanding what is working and what is not is really the first step of any meaningful reform. Originally developed in 2003 by the OECD and the World Bank, the methodology of assessing procurement systems, so MAPS, is now a universally accepted tool to understand any procurement system's strengths and weaknesses. It's building on years of experience and widespread use throughout the world. And it provides for an effective way of identifying and prioritizing key public procurement reforms across the world. With the Secretariat that we're launching today, the MAPS now has a quote-unquote guardian that will provide support to assessment teams and also guarantee the quality of the assessments. We are very pleased at the OECD to host the MAPS Secretariat, and especially in the Public Governance Directorate, which I head. And I really want to thank the partners who have financed this initiative and made this possible. France, the Netherlands, Switzerland, the European Commission, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Inter-American Development Bank, which have provided the most important contributions for the establishment of the Secretariat. And along also with the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the United States, Chile, and the OECD, they constitute today what we call the MAPS Steering Committee, the current one. The Secretariat has also received additional contributions from Canada and the Islamic Development Bank, and also liaises with the entire MAPS network of multilateral development banks, bilateral donors, and developing countries. The OECD has been and will certainly continue to be a strong supporter of the MAPS initiative, all while, of course, ensuring the independence of the Secretariat within the OECD. We have a long experience hosting various international initiatives in the OECD, such as SIGMA in the Public Governance Directorate, also in my directorate, which is a joint initiative of the OECD and the European Union to strengthen public governance systems and public administration capacities of countries of the EU enlargement and neighborhood policies since 1992. The OECD coordinated the MAPS revision process between 2015 and 2017 and has brought together a wide group of stakeholders in what came to be known as the MAPS network. The methodology that Nicolas will present today is universal, aligned with the UN SDGs, and puts emphasis on sound quality assurance throughout its process. It also introduces cutting-edge topics in procurement, such as sustainability and professionalization, which we will hear more about during this seminar. In parallel, the OECD delivers high-quality work on infrastructure and procurement that constitutes useful policy advice to leverage reform. First and foremost, the OECD recommendation on public procurement from 2015, which provides a strong basis for MAPS and distills best international practice in the area. In it, the OECD has encapsulated the main findings and lessons in 12 integrated principles, championing the strategic use of public procurement in achieving better public administration, inclusive growth, and renovated trust. As you know, this is more relevant than ever in this COVID world. In addition to it, we have a more recent recommendation on the governance of infrastructure, which was endorsed by the OECD Council in July 2020, so very recent, and which complements this work by demonstrating the critical role of procurement in the delivery of quality infrastructure. At the OECD, we rely on talking to find solutions to issues governments are facing. Our working party of leading practitioners in public procurement and also the network of senior infrastructure and PPP officials are really clear examples of how sharing best practices and lessons learned among countries can shape improve procurement and infrastructure outcomes. We really look forward to continuing the dialogue between OECD member countries and the MAPS, especially as member countries use data coming out of the MAPS assessments, support evaluations, and even use the tool to assess their own procurement systems, as we will hear today. So with that, I wish you all a very fruitful event, and I'm very, very confident that this is just the start of many positive deliverables in the future that we will see come out from the MAPS Secretariat. Thank you very much. And again, many thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Elsa, and thank you to all the people at the OECD and other teams who have welcomed the Secretariat, getting started under these very special circumstances that we face here in Paris and in many parts of the world still. So with that, I would like to give the floor now to Laurent. If you can provide us with some opening remarks as co-chair of the initiative.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. I'm very glad to participate to this event. That's very important for us. As you know, the participation of France to this MAPS initiative and MAPS Secretariat, as you said. So just a few remarks before letting my colleagues from AFD and OECD talking. First, I want to highlight that public procurement is a key foundation for sustainable development. Public procurement accounts for around 14% of global GDP per year. So it places states throughout the world in a position to leverage the purchase as a lever for change. First, change through better cost effectiveness. If every least advanced country were to save 15% on their procurement, they would generate economies higher than the annual ODA disbursed to them by G7 countries. Change through increased transparency and equity. The UN estimates that between 10 and 25% of the value of public procurement worldwide is wasted in the forms of corruption and kickbacks. So making public procurement fairer is a condition to support private-led growth and reinforce the legitimacy of public institutions. And also change through clear public policy objectives. For public procurement has traditionally been seen as an administrative process focused on ensuring conformity and low prices. There is increasing recognition that it can be used to support more qualitative goals in support of sustainable development. For instance, less than 1% of public procurement currently goes to women-owned business. Recognizing women-specific challenges like securing capital to pay bid bonds can help tweak the procurement system to make it fairer to them. So when it comes to gender equality, mitigating climate change or protecting the environment, public procurement should be a part of the solution, not the problem. Second remark, to seize these opportunities, states have to invest on building their capacities to manage procurement. Many countries have been slow to make progress on that front. Over the last 10 years, only half of the African countries which undertook a PFA evaluation demonstrated progress on its procurement indicator. In high-income economies, some countries have lagged in introducing new technologies to their procurement system. France, for instance, has unified its e-procurement platform less than 8 years ago. Third remark, it's the hope of France that the MAPS will catalyze efforts to reform public procurement system worldwide, coalescing decades of best practices and expert consensus. The MAPS will be able to serve a common lens to identify potential gaps within the procurement system and rationalize the exchange of best practices. It will provide strong data-driven foundation for future procurement reform plans. So that's the remarks that I wanted to do. And then I will give the floor to my colleague, Hélène Ngaring-Ganga, Director of the Political and Civic Transition Department at the French Development Agency, the AFD. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Laurent, and thank you to all. And thank you for having me. I don't think I have a lot to add after the remarks that, after what Elsa and Laurent said. I mean, the numbers which have been cited are you know, make our heads spin. 1%, 1%, even less than 1% for women contractors, from 15 to 25% lost in kickbacks and corruption issues. Obviously, the importance of MAPS cannot be underlined enough, and we're absolutely delighted and proud and happy to be part of this. We have already started working with it. We have already started in Lebanon, and it is now an evidence base to structure the legislative framework, which is now currently under review by the Parliament. We've also worked with MAPS on Burkina Faso to reinforce the institutions and to strengthen capacity building. Finally, just the last point, I would just like to emphasize the greatness of having the system put into place, because it will help us to have a system like we have with PIFA, which would have coherence and harmonization, and which help us in terms of development to have the same basis to which to start from. Thank you.
Thank you, Hélène, and thank you for these words, because I feel that it gives really a frame to what we want to see today, and the support of France and of the rest of the partners has been really great and really fundamental to achieving the launch that we are that is happening today. So with that, I'd like, just before we hear from the two country cases, also present a bit what is MAPS, what the methodology stands for. It's the methodology for assessing procurement systems, as Elsa was introducing. And again, some quick figures and quick facts of why this is important. Of course, procurement is the way in which governments can materialize public policy, but even on economic terms, procurement accounts for anything between 6 to 20%, depending on the region. For example, for OECD countries, the figure is 12% of GDP goes through procurement. So MAPS is here to be really the universal reform tool to help countries improve procurement. It's universal in the sense that any country can apply it, be it or even in a subnational, it can also be applied, regardless of the level of development. So we see countries from different, with different levels of development being able to use MAPS to inform decision-making and reform. It's a reform tool to improve effectiveness and efficiency of the public procurement, ensuring integrity and transparency in the use of funds, which right now is as fundamental as it has been. But citizens really are seeing why this is important and why this matters even for their own health and for their own lives. And it encourages a dialogue among stakeholders, and this is not only part of how the methodology is addressing how to do an evaluation, but also in general what it says about dealing with the private sector, with civil society, and with all the actors and stakeholders that are involved in the public procurement system. This is a recognized assessment that uses objective and comprehensive indicators, engaging different views within a country and guaranteeing the highest standard through a quality assurance mechanism. So very quickly, it assesses 4 different things: value for money, in the way that goods, works, and services should be procured in an economic, efficient, effective, and sustainable way. Transparency, so assessing whether policies and institutions are really delivering what is needed in terms of transparency in data and information related to procurement in an accessible and timely manner. Fairness, especially how suppliers are treated and if there's a level playing field for them to really have them participate in the procurement market. And good governance, recognizing the importance of procurement, of how it is conducted, and of how it can be reformed. So the elements of the methodology, many of you might already know this, but for those of you who don't, and of course I won't go deep into all of the indicators, but just for you to know that it has 4 pillars. When we speak about the core methodology, we are speaking about 4 pillars that compose this methodology, and within each pillar, there are some indicators and sub-indicators that are to be assessed. So the first one is on the legal and regulatory and policy framework. The second one is more on the institutions, how they work within the public procurement system, what's the management capacity of those dealing with procurement, and also how this is within the public financial management system and how those links are working. The third pillar on procurement operations and market practices really goes deep into how in practice procurement is working. So there's the need for this pillar, to assess this pillar, to have a sample of procurement processes to understand really for each one of those if the legislation and what's being thought from the institutions is really complied with and how this is working. And also how the private sector is engaging with the public procurement market. And finally, the fourth pillar deals with accountability, integrity, and transparency. So really how measures are in place, for example, for anti-corruption and to deal with other prohibited practices, also on the audit of procurement, and very especially on how civil society is engaging with procurement and with our procurement system. All of this with the sound quality assurance process, guidance documents, and also an analysis of country context to frame the whole assessment. So MAPS is really a suite. It's a suite of the MAPS core tool, but also of supplementary modules if countries want to deepen their understanding of different topics related to procurement. So today we will see the 2 modules that are already live for any country to use, sustainable procurement and professionalization. And we expect over the coming months, now with the Secretariat in place, with the help of partners that have worked on these modules, to be able to publish those in English, French, Spanish, and hopefully in other languages too. So who can do a MAPS assessment? The methodology is open and can be used by anyone. And it can be done, as I was saying, by any country, both as a self-assessment or with the help of external partners, which is in general the case. If countries indeed want to receive the MAP seal of approval at the end of the process, the assessments have to follow a set of rules and comply with a quality standard that is verified at the end with a final report by the MAP Secretariat. So again, open for anyone to use. If the country wants to receive the MAP seal of approval, it must go through this quality assurance process. And when I say that it's universal, we can really see how broad this has been and how widespread. When we think that the methodology was started, the revised methodology in 2017. So we see that just in a couple of years, many countries, be it subnational or national agencies, have used MAPS as a tool to diagnose their procurement systems and to come up with recommendations for improvement. So either as planned assessments, as ongoing assessments today, or as assessments whose reports have already been finalized and will later be submitted now that the Secretariat is in place for the quality assurance process. You see that countries in all the world have undertaken MAPS assessments. And the process is this just in a nutshell how this works, but of course I'd like to our colleagues from Norway and Peru to go deeper into how it worked for them. It starts with planning and assessment and really having in mind the objectives and putting that into a concept note along with the organizational and logistical arrangements. Then when the assessors go and start the assessment, they start with a country context analysis. And then what they need to do is for each indicator and sub-indicator, assess whether it is met, and if not, provide recommendations of how to bridge that gap. Afterwards, in point 4, you see a very important point in the process is the validation of findings. So it's important for this report not only to be drafted by some assessors and possibly read by some government agencies, but really for the validation of findings to happen with a lot of stakeholders that are involved in the public procurement system in the country. After that, the report is drafted and finalized, and then comes this quality assurance process that I was speaking about, where the MAP Secretariat works with also the technical advisory group that is assembled for a specific report, for a specific assessment. The technical advisory group is a group of experts that provide substantive comments on the report, and the MAP Secretariat provides the comment more on the methodology if it was complied with. For those reports that are approved, the MAP's methodology says that it's up to the Secretariat to deal with the publication. So the reports will be published on our website, mapsinitiative.org, and will be available for anyone to read. Those reports that are approved and final and that we're able to publish. And of course, for the country partners, it comes up to later, based on the recommendations, continue with a strategic action plan on really improving procurement. Here, just quickly, some good practices on the assessments. I don't want to go, again, very deep into this because I want Norway and Peru to let us know how this worked for them, but very briefly, define the objectives, identify the strength, and very, very important, come up with actionable recommendations and follow up on those. When we were saying that this is really a multi-stakeholder approach, we mean so. MAP Secretariat is right now being launched, but it's just one piece of the puzzle of the maps and of a set of partners that are backing this initiative. So we have the steering committee and also a number of countries, of institutions, of development banks, of bilateral development agencies who are backing maps and who provide really the basis for strategy and for what is coming from maps. So I want to thank them all because really all of your input has served into shaping the MAP Secretariat and to be here right now launching this. The MAP Secretariat offers support to users, so support including advice when a country is starting this journey, planning and managing a MAPS assessment, provides also quality review of concept notes and terms of reference to start the assessment. Throughout the assessment, through our help desk function, we provide advice on the assessment teams, for the assessment teams on the maps and how different indicators are to be used. And at the end of the process, we also provide, as I was saying, quality review of the assessments in order to approve those, to grant the MAP seal of approval and to publish them on our website. So here's quickly our contact details, and without further delay, I'd like to give the floor to our first speakers, Dag and Christine. The floor is yours, so feel free to share your screen and let's hear how this was applied in Norway, the core and the sustainable procurement modules.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chair, and thanks a lot for being invited to this event to present the Norwegian experiences based on the 2 MAPS assessment we have done in Norway. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer in Norway, and I I'm assisted in this presentation by Christine Kiel, a very capable and good colleague of mine that was the project manager for both MAPS assessment we did in Norway. So she is very good in the operational work related to the MAPS. Next slide, please. In Norway, we had several objectives for the assessment conducted by the MAPS. First of all, we are every 10th year in Norway making a white paper from the government to the parliament, setting the targets for the development of the public procurement in Norway. Second, based on this white paper, we were developing an action plan on green and innovative public procurement. And for the white paper, we actually did the core MAPS. And for the green public procurement, we did the sustainable public procurement supplementary module to the core MAPS. And I think we also had an important role in being a pilot and actually testing the MAPS indicators and structure and see how it actually was working in Norway. I think for doing a good job on both the white paper and the action plan, we need to do several analyses in front of the development of the documents. And I think that to do an assessment like the MAPS, where you have the support of OECD, the World Bank stands behind it, I think it's a really important document, because we know that the World Bank and the OECD has a great authority related to the Norwegian government, related to the Prime Minister's office, related to the Ministry of Finance. So I think to have these organizations doing an assessment is of great value for Norway. We were also very keen to use this finding to actually improve and further reform the public procurement in Norway. And I think it was very valuable for us to assess our strengths and also, more important, our weaknesses about how to improve. The last objective that I would like to mention is I also believe in the benchmarking. I think those like me that has the responsibility at the national level for the procurement system, we really need to learn from other countries what are best practices and what is not working so well. So I really hope that more countries would like to do the assessments, and that we actually could benchmark and learn from each other. So I think there are several and very, very good objectives for the assessment. Christina? I think we're trying to move to the next slide.
Yes. Some problems. Okay. So this picture shows the process for the two assessments. The core MAPS, it was conducted by OECD with a consultant and gives us an expert peer. And for the MAPS SPP, the UN Environment Programme joined. For the MAPS SPP, we spent more time and had a larger team at the EFÖ preparing for the mission. And in addition to preparing and setting up the interviews and writing the concept notes and analysis of country context, we also sent OECD background information on all the indicators before the mission. And we did an analysis of 28 sample tenders. We added one more day to the fact-finding mission for MAPS SPP that was used to prepare for the interviews. And in total, we interviewed 37 stakeholders for the core MAPS and 126 interviews for the MAPS SPP. And both took a bit more than a year from the start to the report was published.
here we have the result matrix for the 2 maps assessment in Norway. We have the core maps to the left and the sustainable public procurement assessment to the right. As you see, there are not any red flags, but I think we have identified during the yellow color several gaps that we need to improve, and the green ones are related to the overall compliance. I think both of our assessments are available online on the MAPS webpage, as far as I know. But the key thing by showing this is that you need actually to expose yourself. I had my job as the Chief Procurement Officer in Norway now for 13 years. I'm quite responsible for the system in Norway. And you must be aware that there could come some criticism. Your overall ministry sees that, wow, why aren't you better on this than this? I didn't thought you need improvements, and that gaps was identified. But if you're going to be a learning organization, you need to expose yourself. You need to manage to benchmark and to show your weaknesses. I think that is the basis for improvement. And if you're going to deliver white papers, if you're going to deliver reform documents, you need to be good in this basis pre-analysis that actually shows where you need to improve. So you need some courage to do it, but I would really encourage everyone to take that chance, because you so much to learn. And it is not very interesting either to just show everyone that everything is compliance. I think all system has room for improvement. So we were so happy for these gaps that were identified as a basis for our further development. Next slide. I'm not going to go very deep in details about the recommendation, but it's more to show you what level it was on the gaps. It was related to our e-procurement system. I think we really got a push to be better to the data gathering and the performance monitoring. We needed to work more fully to reach the potential of strategic procurement related to the green and to the innovation, etc. We needed to monitor earlier legal reforms. We were invited to have a better, to monitor the performance of our central purchasing body with all the central and national-wide framework agreements. And we also was challenged to increase the professionalization activities, just to show you the basis of the key recommendation. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through this in detail either, but just show you the main recommendations for our sustainable public procurement. It was related to define more the strategic framework for this work. Also here to expand our capacity, expand our data collection, because we needed to monitor, we need to see the results of the green work. And we also were challenged to develop a comprehensive framework for auditing sustainability aspects of public procurement. Just to give you a little brief overview about what we were challenged in relation to. So, Christine, you just go through the lessons learned.
Yes, to sum up, the lessons learned from our experience with the 2 MAPS assessments are: it's been positive and that both assessments have been done before and connected to relevant national processes. The core maps, it gave input to a white paper on public procurement, and the MAPS SVP to an action plan on green and innovative public procurement. And also, the Office of the Auditor General in Norway started an audit on GPP in 2020, maybe inspired by the MAPS SPP. It gave us an objective and relevant analysis and a direction for development and improvement of the procurement system. And even though we knew already some areas for improvement, an external assessment and benchmarking with OECD guidelines and other countries carries more weight. And the assessment also provided us with new information. The process itself, it gave us a lot of professional exchange and learning along the way. We do recommend spending more time on the pre-mission preparations. In MAPS SPP, we were able to dig a bit deeper, and it also identified more areas for improvement. A broad engagement of stakeholders completes the analysis and makes it easier for future involvement and follow up on the key recommendations. And some practical lessons we learned from the core maps was that smaller group interviews gave a good discussion, and the sequence of the interviews matters. So it's good to spend some time on the sequence of the interviews. So I think that was what we had.
Thank you, Christine and Dag. It's been really interesting to hear how you applied these to the core and the sustainable procurement module. And we were seeing from some questions there in the chat that people were actually interested to hear that a country like Norway can apply maps and actually see some things to improve, because sometimes many people think that these tools are only to be applied in certain countries that have only started, I don't know, with their e-procurement or setting up some institutions. But maybe a quick question for you is out of those recommendations, have you been able to start working on some, and how has that process been out of those that you highlighted there at the end?
Christine, would you like to start?
I can start with the action plan with the green and innovative public procurement. It's been ongoing, so some of the findings from the MAPS SPP are waiting until the launch of the action plan, but we have started also some activities. We have recently launched a program to increase the GPP competence. And with this program, we have already published the beginner's guidance, e-learning and webinars on how to get started with green public procurement. This is also connected to a certification scheme on sustainable public procurement that we are developing. And in February, we opened a help desk, a telephone line and an email that's open 5 days a week, and that answers SPP questions.
In relation to the white paper, I would like to just mention that I think when we deliver the white paper to the Parliament and the Parliament discuss it and make a decision about how to move forward, it will last for at least 10 years. And we have 40 different tasks that we are going to fulfill over the next years. But I think based on the maps, we have already started to improve our e-procurement system. And we also work very hard to improve the data gathering for how to measure and how to develop further, and also see the results of the different reform activities. So I think we will, over the next 10 years, move forward to implement and fulfill the targets and priorities made in the MAPS assessment and then put into the white paper. So this is ongoing work for my division here in Norway.
Thank you. Thank you, Dag and Christine. I think I would now, as we are almost 4:45 here in Paris, I would like to give the floor now to our second speaker of the second country case. So Sophia, if you could share your screen, and let's start hearing how the professionalization supplementary module was piloted in Peru with the help of the Inter-American Development Bank. Over to you, Sophia.
Thank you very much, Nicolas, for your kind introduction. It is my pleasure to participate in this important event that recognizes the relevance of strategic and trustworthy procurement systems. It is also an opportunity to thank the OECD, the Inter-American Development Bank, Javier Davila and his team, who made our assessment with the professionalization model possible. Let me start by saying a few words about our country. Just a minute, please. There is a little problem with the presentation, but just a minute. Okay, according to the National Infrastructure Plan for Competitiveness, the infrastructure gap on public services in our country is equivalent to 82,000 billion euro. Likewise, Peru ranks 79 out of 141 economies in the utility infrastructure ranking, according to the 2019 Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum. As can be concluded, Peru needs to implement urgent and efficient measures to close these gaps and provide citizens with equal access to opportunities. More specifically, public procurement represents approximately 40% of 2021 general budget. And 60% of that is allocated in investment projects, mostly infrastructure projects. That being said, what about the Peruvian logistic professional profile? We have 12,804 procurement officers. These officers have been certified by OCE, our institution. 49% of them are located in Lima, the capital of the country, and 71% have a profession or a technical career. This shows us the need to balance the presence of procurement offices across the country and to recruit officers with the right skills to ensure procurement with value for money. Now, what has MAP's professionalization module have done for us? The assessment began in March 2019 and ended in December that same year. During these 9 months, we worked with IDB consultants to evaluate 4 thematical pillars of MAPS: the legal framework, institutional framework, market practices, accountability, integrity, and transparency. We went through all the stages from preparation to the final report, passing through surveys of information. We had a base document, we had an evaluation workshop and a preliminary report. The work included the engagement with stakeholders such as public entities, the private sectors, the academy, control entities. Also included participatory methods and tools such as interviews, focus groups, and surveys. As a result of the evaluation, we obtained the following main recommendations. First of all, regulations and policies should recognize the importance of public procurement professionalization. Secondly, professionalization plans should be comprehensive and articulated with strategic procurement plans. Also, a procurement performance measurement system should be implemented. In addition, we need to design and implement a public procurement career. And also we should strengthen alliances to offer more training programs on public procurement. Finally, integrity and accountability should be part of professionalization plans. These recommendations came just in time because during 2019, we began the implementation of an IDB project, the purpose of which is precisely to reform public procurement in Peru. Therefore, thanks to these inputs, we have been able to create an improved training and certification model. This new model is based in 5 pillars: the capacity to generate self-development, innovation, the alignment with our institutional the alignment with OCE's strategic goals, cultural and digital transformation to embrace technology as a learning enhancer, and focus on the users to design a training offer according to their needs. Furthermore, our new training and certification model takes the best elements of many frameworks and best international practices and blends them to provide a learner-centric performance roadmap for creating authentic learning experiences. These elements are a vision and strategy, a training model, value chain, organization and roles, technology, a certification model, monitoring and evaluation, strategic partnerships, and a communication plan. We have already begun the implementation of our model. During 2020, despite the challenges arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to launch our vision and strategy. Currently, we are working on redefining organization, roles, and performance skills of our staff who are responsible for deliver and measure the learning solutions. By the end of 2021, we must have developed strategic partnerships with stakeholders and implemented a training pilot in which we will put into practice the elements of our strategy. Particularly important is the monitoring and evaluation of the model results. This is because our goal is to change on-the-job behavior. In order to do that, we will implement a key performance indicator scorecard that measures the results and impact of the learning solutions. Additionally, we estimate the deployment of the certification model in 2022, so that by 2023, we will have implemented a complete training offer that meets the learning needs of our procurement officers and get our country closer to a more efficient and strategic procurement. All in all, we at OCE firmly believe that working with an improved learning and knowledge strategy, thanks to MAPS and the IDB project, will allow Peru to deal with current challenges from the pandemic and economic crisis and close the gaps that affect the lives of our citizens. I don't have enough words to thank MAPS, what MAPS have done for us. That's my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sophia. It's a really very interesting exercise what you were able to do in Peru. We have some questions here as to the scope, and so was it applied to all government institutions? How did you decide on which institutions you went deeper into understanding how professionalization was happening?
Well, it is important to recognize that procurement officers with the right skills are essential to get efficient procurement processes. Therefore, if we have gaps in infrastructure or in access to public services, it is obvious that something isn't working, and we have the responsibility to know what it is. MAP's professionalization module can help countries to identify this space of opportunity, things that have to improve or change in order to strengthen public buyers' skills and build a model that ensures procurement with value for money. To take more advantage of the assessment, I would recommend to have a specific team in charge of the evaluation and to be aware of the time involved. But we should have in mind that it's completely worth it.
Thank you, and also we received another question regarding something that's very specific to MAPS, and it's the surveys. So you were able to conduct surveys there with the procurement staff. So how did this work? how did you prepare and apply those surveys? Because as I said, it's different parts of the maps, both in the core and in the supplementary modules, ask for surveys to be carried out.
Yes, as Zach said, it is the first thing that every country should have in mind is to set clear goals. That's that's very important. Regarding surveys, it was important for us to identify and have a database of the main actors and stakeholders of public procurement in our country, such as public entities, suppliers gathered in institutional unions, control bodies, the entities responsible for the modernization of public administration and integrity in the country, academia, and the civil society. It is important to have this information. Also, the design of the surveys should be made thinking in each actor, taking into account what information we wanted for them and we want to obtain from them, and linking this information to the indicators of each of the pillars of the evaluation methodology. In that way, we were able to find precise information regarding every pillar, and that made made easier for us to identify the kind of reforms that we should do. That's how we get to our new improved training and certificate new training and certification model.
Thank you. And last question that we will take right now is one that's coming from India around how the links with integrity and transparency measures. So within the training and certifications that you use in Peru, how do you deal with these topics and how do you include them for procurement staff to learn from these two topics, integrity, transparency, and public procurement?
Yes, of course, this is extremely important. Public officers not only have to be specialized in the action of procurement, but also have the correct values to protect the public resources and to be able to do everything in their hands to get the national goals. So in our new learning and certification model, integrity and transparency are essential. We should start from the beginning, identifying the main stakeholders in these areas to involve them into the design of the the learning experience. And also we are going to use technology to improve the way that we approach the users, specifically the public officers. So it would be more easy for them to connect with these notions. And we are completely engaged in the task of give them a learning experience, not only something to read, something to share, something that make them aware of the risks and also aware of the opportunities to embrace integrity and transparency on the results that they are looking for in their own jobs.
Thank you, Sophia. I think these two very different contexts of two countries and two different procurement systems really highlight the value of maps as a universal tool and how it can be used for procurement reform. There are a couple of questions now about that I will take very briefly about the methodology itself and the Secretariat. So remember that everything is on our website, mapsinitiative.org. The methodology itself in English, French, Spanish, plus a number of, as the methodology is translated also to Portuguese, to Arabic, and to Russian. We also have guidance documents there, and the pilot report that we just presented for those of you who are asking. You can read the Norwegian and Peruvian examples there. And we will publish very soon all those that are considered the backlog of reports that have been carried out as soon as they are presented to the MAP Secretariat, they will be reviewed, approved, and published if they have complied with the methodology. And we are able to provide all this support to countries that are willing to start, and as there were questions also on subnationals, or even to subnational governments who are willing to undertake this. So a state, for example, in a country that is willing to assess their own procurement system, that's possible. And we can absolutely provide from the MAP Secretariat advice on how to do it, and even link to different partners that might be able also to provide technical assistance on that matter. So now I would to conclude this event, I would like to invite two very close friends and partners of the MAPS initiative who really know this very well. Vinay Sharma from the World Bank and Paulo Medina. I'd like to maybe ask you to reflect a bit on the process that started back in 2003 when the OECD and the World Bank initiated the methodology, and that has now launching today MAP Secretariat with assessments being carried out all over the world and with a tool that is really proven to be impactful to improve reform. So I'd like to give the floor first to Vinay, Global Director for Governance Procurement at the World Bank. Please, Vinay.
Thank you, Nicholas, for the invitation, and congratulations on the launch of this event. I must also thank Elsa, Hélène, Laura for setting the stage, and for the excellent presentation by Dag, Christine, and Sophia for the two supplementary modules. Now, this is, of course, a very important day for all of us, and it gives us great pleasure to see the MAPS Secretariat fully operational under your leadership, Nicholas. I'm also happy to see that within a very short time, the Secretariat has achieved a great deal. It's in our collective interest, in the collective interest of all the stakeholders, to continue engaging in a substantive way with the Secretariat, so that the assessment tool gains maturity and is used in a larger number of countries. We at the World Bank are particularly proud of having been active members of the initiative and providing support professionally and through the MDTF, through the donors, the generosity of the donors or the procurement MDTF that we are hosting. Now, I am not really going to go very much into the details of the MAPS tool because this has already been covered by Nicholas and the supplementary tool, but we know that's been there for a long time. It's about 17, 18 years that's been around. It was updated following 2015 OECD recommendations of the Council on Public Procurement, and is reflective of leading international procurement frameworks as the procurement policies of the MDBs, the UCITRAL model law, the EU directives on public procurement, and of course the procurement frameworks that is used by many donors and countries. I think what is important is that it provides a holistic assessment framework that establishes the criteria of an effective and efficient procurement system that all countries should strive to achieve. Now, this is, of course, linked to the SDGs, particularly the Goal 12, which calls for the promotion of sustainable procurement practices in line with national priorities and policies, and Goal 16, which calls for effective and efficient and accountable institutions. It reflects a modern understanding of public procurement. As we know, the public procurement has matured over the last many years, and it takes into account global developments and improvements and broad worldwide experience. It defines the structure for conducting a country context analysis, presents a refined indicator system for assessing the quality and performance of the system in terms of outcomes and results, and describes the key elements of the assessment process. Now, we at the World Bank have led more than 20 MAPs in the last few years, including in 12 IDA countries. And as you know, IDA countries are the poorer countries. And up to now, we have completed 16 MAPs assessments and have 5 more that are ongoing. We have many MAPs assessments in the pipeline in future, and we'll continue to provide our support and assistance to our client countries in conducting the assessment and strengthen the public procurement system. We continue to work with other MDBs to provide the support and assistance to the countries. In addition to the use of core MAPs methodology, many supplementary modules have been prepared, and we saw the presentation for 2 of them from Dag, Christine, and Sophia. The e-procurement module is under development, and we encourage the countries to pilot these once it is completed. I think a couple of things, a couple of reflections. I mean, while the assessments are being carried out, the quality assurance is critically important. And a very important role, of course, is played by the TAG members in coordination with the MAP Secretariat. We hope that the TAG is the Technical Advisory Group members will continue to actively participate in quality assurance, including review of the concept note and MAPS assessments. MAPS Secretariat, of course, will provide the guidance and trainings to the countries, and we hope to be able to support the MAPS Secretariat if needed, in particular for the MAPS training. Now, we know, I mean, why is all this important? We know that these sound procurement systems, the benefits of sound procurement systems have been evidenced in many studies. For example, a survey that was conducted by the World Bank during the COVID crisis last year, just about 8 months ago, found clear links to the quality of the response with the quality of the country's procurement system. Countries with weaker systems were more likely to introduce procedures that were riskier and less transparent. Countries with a well-developed legislative framework for emergency procurement were better prepared to face the COVID-19 pandemic, having to introduce fewer changes, amendments, or new legislation. This ultimately led to better health outcomes and reduced deaths. Transparency and accountability standards deteriorated for COVID-19 related procurement relative to standard procurement, especially on whether public procurement information is easily accessible, readable, and downloadable, and the timeliness to make public procurement information publicly available. Quality of institutions was seen as an important driver of the timeliness and quality of the procurement reform, a procurement response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the deterioration of transparency and accountability standards for emergency procurement is contained by stronger institutions. The readiness of the national emergency procurement system were higher in countries with higher quality of institutions. Here we see a direct link between the quality of procurement systems in countries and the quality of outcomes. And this is here, I think, where the MAPS assessment tool plays a very important role. The World Bank is also preparing a report on the lessons that we can learn based on the assessments done so far. This we hope will inform the quality and consistency of future reports. We are privileged to be working with all of you and with the MAP Secretariat in particular, and we hope that our collaboration will continue in a very positive way. So thank you again for giving me this opportunity, and great being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinay, and thank you for that great support, as always, for the World Bank. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Paulo Magina from the Infrastructure and Public Procurement Division at the OECD. Paulo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolas, and thanks to all of you that explained the MAPS in the previous interventions. I believe this is a very happy and joyful moment for all of us and for me personally. Maybe, Nicolas, you are not aware, but we are just 1 week short of the global procurement event in Manila that agreed on having a revision of the MAPS methodology. It was precisely in 20 April 2015 that we got together in Manila, and we decided to revise the MAPS and align it with international standards. And in fact, I went back to the emails and the exchange that was done at the time, and I have an email from Vinay precisely replying to Jack from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, where Jack was asking us, we should create core principles for procurement and we should use the MAPS. And Vinay is replying saying, yes, we agree on developing key principles. And after 6 years, here we are. And if we go back to the title of that global procurement event, it was called From Procurement to Results, Value for Money, Accountability and Participation. And I think all of these words resonate very well with the work we are doing today, with the impact that the MAPS assessments can have in countries, OECD, non-OECD, developed, highly income countries or low-income countries. And I'm very proud to have led and conducted the MAPS assessments in Norway, both of them, that were also an opportunity to improve the methodology. So in both assessments, we use the projects to streamline and to improve the indicators and the sub-indicators. And as you could witness from Christina's presentation, of course, we took some lessons also from the first core assessment to improve the quality of the assessment process itself. And it's also important to share these lessons with all of you, that there is always some learning to take from the assessments, even if we are conducting this assessment in a highly developed country such as Norway. It's always possible to identify areas for improvement, and that I think it was quite clear. And that's why I will not give up until all OECD countries conduct a MAPS assessment, both at the national level and also at the regional level. As you mentioned, Nicolas, we can also apply it to states and regions. And in fact, together with the World Bank, we conducted a very interesting assessment and the support of the EBRD as well in Kazakhstan, where we also analyzed the National Sovereign Fund using the MAPS score methodology, and this report is also available. So the MAPS can be used in different contexts and in different levels of government, in different systems. And on top of everything that was said, maybe it's important to highlight that 3 modules are ready for testing. I believe that can be said. We have the entity level, the sector market analysis and PPP and concessions modules that are ready for being tested in order to be published. And we are finalizing the procurement module. And as we used to say during the revision process that took 3 years from 2015 to 2018, we had many meetings, as many of you know, and we spent many days looking at each phrase and each word of the MAPS in order to produce a very thorough, comprehensive, forward-looking and ambitious methodology. I think it's very important that all of you realize that the MAPS is not meant to provide a green stamp to procurement systems. The MAPS is clearly a reform tool, and it's something that is and should be used for improving the systems. So we used to joke that we had more than 200 years of procurement expertise in the meetings of the MAPS networks that was in charge of the revision process coordinated by the OECD. So I think all of this is very interesting. We managed to apply it to also small states, like in the Eastern Caribbean. With the support of the Caribbean Development Bank, we conducted MAPS assessments in small islands in Caribbean that also allowed us to improve the methodology. And finally, we are now precisely applying the MAPS in Greece, another OECD country. And the MAPS results should be ready in the second half of this year. So we see a lot of potential using the tool. We see a lot of impact coming from the MAPS assessment that, together with the OECD standards and principles and the reviews we conduct independently, are also something that the countries and different levels of government can use. And with this, I will conclude my short remarks, thanking all of you, the multilateral development banks that supported the revision of the MAPS, the different countries that provided guidance and input, the OECD for hosting, of course, the MAPS Secretariat. This is just the beginning. This is not the end of the journey. We are just starting a very, I would say, bright journey, all of us. And I thank you, Nicolas, and I wish you all the best for the future of the MAPS Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo, and especially like really big thanks to you, because you really led this journey up until the creation of the Secretariat and housing it properly. So big thanks to that. Quickly, Vinay, please, if you want to add something. I see you've raised your hand.
No, I just was waiting for the end to express our deep sense of gratitude to Paulo for having driven this process for such a very long time, and thanks to Paulo, we were able to be coordinated and get this particular tool in this form. So Paulo, thanks again for your leadership for this, and thanks Nicholas for taking it forward.
Thank you all for attending this event. We will, at the MAP Secretariat, as said, we will be able to provide support. Feel free to reach out to us at any point. And also, there's a number of questions that we could not address right now because of time constraints, but we will publish them on our website. So follow us on Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn for more on the new modules that we will publish very soon. For more on translations to other languages, more guidance documents, but also hopefully very soon, full reports, approved reports that you will be able to see on our website. So thank you all for this very interesting event with these 2 country cases, and thank you to our speakers for providing those remarks and presentations. Hope to see you in other events that we organize. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.